On today's Mega News, a new Nintendo generation is almost upon us with the advent of the Nintendo Switch 2, which is launching on June 5th, 2025. For the most part, the system itself and the games are insanely hyped, but unfortunately there is a lot of negativity and uncertainty attached to that when you get into the nitty-gritty details, such as pricing, those game key cards, and there is some unfortunate news for us Mega Man fans. Nintendo has reported that there is some compatibility issues with Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 on the new system. Beyond that, I want to take a close look at what Capcom is currently doing on the Switch 2 that may tell us a little bit of what Mega Man's future may look like on the system. So let's get to talking about all that, because whoo boy, we got a lot to unpack here. Welcome back to Mega News. I'm ShadowRock, and it has been 3 weeks since the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, where we got the hour-long blowout of the launch lineup, what the system does, and all that stuff. Unfortunately, we didn't get any Mega Man announcements, but I expected that, so I'm not sour about it. However, we did get a tiny nugget of Mega Man related info within the vortex of news that came out after the Direct, so I thought I would come on here and talk about my thoughts and feelings on the Switch 2 as it stands today, after weeks of absorbing every bit of information and hands-on impressions that I could find. I don't do deep dives on console launches that often, however, Mega Man does have a tight relationship with Nintendo, owing to its origins on the NES. Heck, every time I've brought up Mega Man with coworkers and other random people in the wild, I've always gotten the response, Mega Man is a old Nintendo game, right? So yeah, why not take a look into the future here? Now originally this video was going to come much sooner, but there's 3 reasons why I had to delay it. The most egregious of them being that I got hit with my annual spring illness, but being forced to buy the extra time turned out to be for the best. Because since the Direct aired, it has been a non-stop whirlwind of news. It feels like we've been learning something new about the launch details every hour. Furthermore, there is a ton of outrage online for completely reasonable reasons, chief among them concerning pricing. The sticker shock that I believe turned the situation to a full-blown PR nightmare for Nintendo being the fact that Mario Kart World is $80 US. No, it's not $90 US, and there are no $90 US games. Yet. That was misinformation that seemingly originated from a screenshot that showed 90 euros. Euros is not the same as US dollars. What's made things worse is, seemingly in an attempt to avoid exactly this scenario, Nintendo chose to withhold all the less than pleasant details from the initial Direct and made all of us find it out on our own after the fact. The weeks of confusion over important details that Nintendo should have clarified from the beginning is honestly mind-boggling. And to think it all could have been avoided if they were more forthcoming and made the information easy to find. So much for that. Their decisions have now backfired on them, and they have lost control of the messaging to the point that the livestream chats and all of their broadcasts have been non-stop spamming, drop the price. If you know angry people online, then you know that they tend to have a knee-jerk reaction to the first thing they hear without fact-checking or seeing the whole context. Or they misinterpret information in general, and that unfortunately leads to misinformation. Not that it's anyone's fault. I had a doomer moment as well the first time I read about game key cards, which contain no game data on them. The misinformation was that all Switch 2 games would be key cards, but thankfully that is not the case, and traditional physical copies will still come out, especially from first-party games. It turns out, game key cards are just a new version of those download code in a case games from the Switch 1, But actually, game key cards are a bit better than that because they are cartridges that act as download authenticators that aren't tied to an account. So you can share and sell them the same way as any other physical copy. If physical media truly does die out in the near future, the concept of game key cards arrive at an interesting compromise where they are still collectible in the now, but in a couple decades when the servers eventually shut down, they're going to become useless. Unfortunately, game key cards are proven to be a popular option among third-party developers, including Capcom, with Street Fighter 6 of all games being a key card. And their only other release so far, Kunitsugami, is also rumored to be a key card. That does not bode well for any future Mega Man games on the system, I tell you what. Oh boy. Likely this idea was Nintendo's best effort to court third parties into porting games to Switch 2 that they would not have otherwise, either due to their file size being too large, or the publishers don't want to cut into their profit margins by paying for a bigger game card. It absolutely sucks for us physical collectors, and I'm not someone that likes to sell my games, so I'd rather skip the key card and go straight for the digital copy so I don't have to insert the key card every time I want to play it. Yes, that is a limitation of them, but from a business point of view, it's just easier and cheaper for publishers to go the game key card route while still maintaining a presence on store shelves. So I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see them outnumber the true physical copies on the third-party side of things. Especially because there's a rumor making the rounds that there is only a 64GB cartridge and a tiny cartridge available, with nothing in between, which is weird. That rumor seems to be backed up by a statement from Marvelous that Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is on a 64GB cartridge. Cyberpunk 2077 is also going to have everything on one 64GB cartridge, thankfully. But the weird thing about Rune Factory is the file sizes for those games have historically been fairly small. We're talking less than 10GB. So it does lend credence to the rumor, and if it is true, then that certainly explains why Capcom and many other third parties would rather go the game key card route. What is Nintendo thinking here? That's beyond me. But yeah, I am already bracing myself to see the next big Mega Man title end up on a game key card. There's many more examples of misinformation that spread in the early days. Some got debunked quickly, while other claims took more time to be investigated by the community, including digging into the fine print, emailing support representatives, or otherwise awaiting an official statement. And yes, again, this does reflect badly on Nintendo's marketing for making the info hard to find. At least in Western territories, I've heard that they've been doing a better job of communication in their home country of Japan, go figure. Regardless, I'll be sharing some more debunks later in this video so you guys are armed with the most accurate information as we know it today. The final element that forced me to take a wait-and-see approach is the whole tariff situation that caused Nintendo to delay pre-orders in the United States and Canada from their original April 9th date to April 24th. I don't care to go in depth about this, but the tariffs do mean that prices on products are going to go up across the board as the cost is usually passed to the consumer. Heck, I just got an email from Big Bad Toy Store letting me know that my Mega Man series Kotobukiya model kit orders may be subjected to a tariff surcharge. Meanwhile, Sony has already been raising the price of the PlayStation 5 in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. So yeah, it sounds like smartphones and computer parts will be mostly spared for now, but video game consoles and most of our other hobbies are going to be affected. Not to mention businesses big and small that sell the affected products. With the announcement of the new April 24th pre-order date coming hot off the presses, we now have an official statement from Nintendo how the tariffs will affect their pricing as well. The good news is the price of the base console will remain at $449.99 US, and the bundle with a digital copy of Mario Kart World at $499.99 US. Basically $450 and $500 respectively. I think this was the right move, even if Nintendo ends up selling the system at a loss, because they can make back that lost revenue through software and accessory sales. And hoo boy, do they need all the goodwill they can get right now. Speaking of software, there's bad news for those screaming drop the price. All the game prices are remaining the same too, including Mario Kart. That isn't to say the tariffs didn't hit anything though, because indeed. It turns out the accessories will be where Nintendo will recoup the costs, as they are getting about a $5 to $10 increase across the board, bringing a new Joy-Con 2 pair up to $95. Woo boy, these things better not drift. The new Pro Controller, which was the only accessory I care about, is now $85, and so on. That's unfortunate, but honestly, accessories are optional, and it's been confirmed that Switch 1 controllers will still work, so the new Pro Controller isn't necessary. If something had to get a price increase, I'm glad it's just optional stuff for now. Oh, okay, hold on. This next one hurts actually. So during that Switch 2 Direct, Capcom presented a new line of amiibo for Street Fighter 6. Gotta hand it to Capcom for being one of the only third parties to consistently get new amiibo. Between this, Monster Hunter, and even the gold Mega Man and Mega Man 11 amiibo. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is getting some new ones too. The bad news is the tariffs have hit the amiibo as they have for figures in general. This is because the amiibos and other toys are manufactured in China, where the most significant tariffs are being applied. So we are looking at a $10 increase here across the board for the new amiibo. $30 for the Zelda line and $40 for the Street Fighter 6 ones. In ye olden days, that would have been the price for a 3-pack, but nope, that's $40 for individual figures. Yikes, that's a hard pill to swallow. Well, now that all the important information has straightened out for us, let's discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we know about the Switch 2 so far. For the positives, I'll start with the Switch 2 hardware itself. Nvidia, who are once again making the chip for the system, claims that Switch 2 is 10 times more powerful than the Switch 1, and they also confirmed that it will support Deep Learning Super Sampling, or DLSS for short, Variable Refresh Rate, aka VRR, and even Ray Tracing. That's combined with 4K support when docked, 1080p in handheld mode, plus support for 120 frames per second, and HDR built into the screen, and you have a super capable mobile device that goes beyond what we would typically expect from a Nintendo console. In terms of upgrades from the Switch 1, I like the idea of the magnetic Joy-Cons that I hear make a solid connection to the console this time around, with no jiggling or feeling like they're gonna fall out. Thank God, because the Joy-Cons unintentionally sliding off the Switch 1 once they wear out has been a huge pain over the years. I've only had one of my original Joy-Con pairs start drifting, but the sliding problem has happened to all of my Joy-Con across the board, because those plastic locks are so fragile. I'm also hoping the wireless connection is better with the Joy-Con 2s, because there have been instances with the Switch 1 Joy-Cons where if I sit on the other side of the bedroom from the dock, then inputs sometimes get dropped, and that's not good. As for the whole drifting debacle, apparently Nintendo has made improvements to the sticks, but they're not Hall effect sticks either. That's understandable though, because Hall effect uses magnets, and Joy-Con 2s already have magnets built in, so the extra magnets would have conflicted with each other. We'll see how that all shakes out. I mean, to be fair, I doubt Nintendo wants to catch another lawsuit over drift again, but for now, at least my gorilla-sized hands will appreciate the larger Joy-Cons and buttons. I personally won't know if the new mouse mode is a gimmick or a game changer until I try it for myself, but people that have gone hands-on have said it does make shooter games like Metroid Prime 4, or games that were designed around a mouse such as Civilization 7, much more intuitive to play. So that's promising to hear. I can only imagine how it will change how we play a potential Splatoon 4. As someone who isn't big on gaming with a keyboard, I like that you can use the left Joy-Con normally for movement. To me, that sounds a bit more comfortable than hitting keys at least. Hilariously, using the mouse on your pants is an actual developer recommendation, which I did not expect. So it will be interesting to see how well that works. And according to hands-on impressions, even though that larger screen is an LCD and not an OLED screen, apparently the colors still look vibrant and the quality is a step above the original Switch 1 screen, especially thanks to HDR. Tapping back into power comparisons, the Switch 2 appears to punch above the power of a PS4, at least in docked mode. Some people have gone as far as to compare it to a PS4 Pro, or even an Xbox Series S, which I don't know about that, but PS4 Pro? Sure, I can believe that. The jury is still out on the handheld mode performance due to a lack of data. People have been comparing some of the announced third-party titles to their PS5 counterparts, and while Switch 2 won't quite match a PS5's power, the fact that it still looks scary close is amazing. You have to remember that the PS4 is still a pretty dang powerful machine, and also, going from PS4 to PS5, graphics have plateaued greatly, so there isn't even that much of a big difference, to be honest. So yeah, to say that the handheld is PS4 level, that's still pretty nice. Nintendo has certainly closed the power gap more than they have since arguably the GameCube days. Now, one thing Nintendo didn't have back at the beginning of the Switch 1 era was competition from other handheld PCs. But now with Switch 2 coming out, people can't help but draw comparisons to the Steam Deck. As a Steam Deck owner myself, I admit it can be interesting to see how the two compare in performance. And I'll go ahead and sum it up in a couple of sentences. Obviously, when you dock it, the Switch 2 is hands down going to be more powerful than the Steam Deck. On the other hand, when switching to handheld mode, they are going to be comparable to each other. The Steam Deck will have an edge in raw processing power, although Switch 2 has a 1080p screen, whereas Steam Deck screen maxes out at 800p. I think it will ultimately come down to a game-by-game basis which one comes out on top when going mobile. But in the grand scheme of things, the comparisons are a moot point because the two devices serve two entirely different markets and use cases. Nintendo Switch is a plug-and-play console that at any time you can pick up and start playing without delay, making the experience accessible to everyone. On the other hand, the Steam Deck provides a convincing illusion of a plug-and-play device, but in reality, it is a Linux-based gaming PC and you'll have to do some tinkering to get the most out of it. I love Steam Deck's massive library, emulators, and all the Steam sales like everyone else. However, even some Steam Deck verified games aren't guaranteed to work amazingly out of the box. And that creates a barrier of entry that many people aren't entirely comfortable with. Whereas, unless the developer did a total botch job, Switch games just work, and their controllers just work. That is going to be where the Switch 2 has an edge in the mass market. In other words, the two devices are not the same. So even though I have a Steam Deck, I'm still excited about Switch 2 because of its unique features and, more importantly, its exclusive games that you probably won't be emulating on a deck at full fidelity anytime soon. After all, a powerful new handheld with fancy features doesn't mean anything without compelling games to play on it. With all the controversy going on, there's been these weird comparisons drawn between the Switch 2 and the Wii U, suggesting that we are heading back to those dark times. I can't tell if they're joking or they don't understand why the Wii U failed. It was a combination of a lot of things. The name was confusing, the marketing legitimately made casuals think that it was just a controller add-on for the original Wii. The concept behind the gamepad wasn't the game changer Nintendo was hoping for, and developers were at a loss on how to make the most of it. Though it is funny to think now that the gamepad was basically a beta version of the Switch. You could write a book about all their mistakes, but you know what also killed their momentum early on? There were no games. We meme about the PS5 having no games, but guys, the Wii U had it worse early on. Sure, there was Nintendo Land, which I did like, and the 4th new Super Mario Bros. Title in the span of 8 years. Nope, that's actually a span of 6 years. Holy cow, no wonder we were so tired of this series by then. And a couple of third-party titles. Oh, how exciting, but after that came the software droughts. Like, dude, I cannot overstate enough how absolutely brutal that first year of Wii U's life was. It launched in November 2012, but the game lineup and the console itself was so undercooked that it felt like they should have delayed it by a full year. As an early adopter myself, I really did feel like a beta tester at that time because all we got was breadcrumbs of stuff to play and promises of better things on the horizon. E3 2013 was pretty neat, or maybe I have rose-tinted nostalgia glasses on because that was when Mega Man was revealed for Smash Bros. I'll always fondly look back on my first time playing Mario 3D World and Mario Kart 8 at the Best Buy event during E3 as well, and also the Best Buy event where I played Smash 4 for the first time. I already made a video about that story in CoFam's Mega March this year. But going back to E3 2013, that was fun and all, but then you tell me I have to wait until December for 3D World and wait until 2014 to have Mario Kart 8 and Smash Bros? Then Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze got delayed into 2014 too? Like, come on Nintendo, these were the games you needed available in year 1, not deep into year 2. The Wii U did end up with a pretty cool game library at the end, but by that point, the ship had already sailed. The masses didn't care or knew that it was Nintendo's next-gen console for that matter. And now we have 90% of the Wii U exclusives on Switch anyways. Nintendo learned a lot of hard lessons from the Wii U era, and we even see that implemented with the Switch 2 today. Sure, a couple of elements do remind me of it, like the heavy marketing push for the game chat feature, which is what that mysterious C button is for. Even during the Direct, I was getting impatient with how much time they spent on game chat. Like, congratulations Nintendo, you finally figured out how to do a functional voice chat feature like everyone else has been doing for decades. Nintendo sounds like they're really proud of this feature as if it's a game changer because it's essentially their version of Discord. And it is cool, but then they keep showing the 5 frames per second screen share windows, and while I appreciate the honesty, that immediately makes that whole thing look so unattractive. Even though I understand it's done intentionally to limit the resources the OS uses, they should have just focused on the full screen webcams instead. That part looks nice. But for that, you need a separate USB-C camera or that $50 camera accessory. Actually, I think it's more now with the tariffs. If you want to show your face. Because they forgot to include a camera on the Switch 2 hardware itself, I guess. I just fail to see game chat as the system-selling feature Nintendo thinks it is, and I wonder how many people will use it. People that don't have Discord, I guess? I guess that's a fair chunk of people. Being honest though, people like myself that do have Discord would rather stick with that instead. Well, even though that's weird, it's still not as bad as the truly fatal missteps that were made with Wii U. First of all, it's called Switch 2 and not Super Nintendo Switch like they almost did. No, seriously, there was an interview where they said that was one of the names they came up with. But they landed on Switch 2 specifically to avoid confusion about what it is. After all, we've been trained through the PlayStation line that bigger number next to the name means it's a new generation. Sometimes less is more and a boring name is what you need to send a clear message. The ability to take a console-like experience on the go is still as much of a genuine game changer as it was in 2017. The novelty of which I don't think will wear off anytime soon, especially for those that commute daily. If that mouse mode also becomes the new best way to play certain genres of games on a console, like some hands-on impressions would have me believe, then even better. And yes, Nintendo do be cooking some good stuff with the Switch 2's game lineup in 2025. Granted, I don't think it's going to top the Switch 1's first year when the planets aligned and brought us Zelda Breath of the Wild. I don't think Nintendo's going to have that much of a life-changing game at launch ever again. We had ARMS, Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade 2, and more. Even Inti crates came out swinging on Switch 1 with Blaster Master Zero right around launch, Mighty Gunvolt Burst, and Gunvolt Striker Pack that year. Then that December we got Mega Man 11 and both the Classic and X Legacy collections announced for it. Man, what a year to be alive. I don't know if 2017 will ever be topped. That said, Switch 2's lineup so far is looking pretty solid. Like I said earlier, that wait for Mario Kart 8 on Wii U was awful, man. But it got a second chance to shine on Switch 1 shortly after its launch, and it's on Switch that it became the 5th best selling video game of all time. Seriously, the only Nintendo game that performed better was Wii Sports. Otherwise, it's only beaten out by Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto 5. Holy cow. That right there is the reason why Nintendo thinks they can get away with that new $80 price tag. Because to be honest, they probably will get away with it. That's also the reason that right out of the gate on launch day, we are getting the first brand new Mario Kart game since 2014 on the Wii U. That's over 10 years, dude! In the form of Mario Kart World. And boy, has it been a long time coming. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the individual games because, well, this is a Mega Man channel, so none of this necessarily appeals to my core audience. Also, we'd be here all day if I went in depth. That said, let me put the price discussion aside for a moment and say that Mario Kart World looks like an exciting generational leap for the series. The courses and new animations look stunning. I like the unorthodox characters like the frickin' Moo Moo Metals cow? What? The new charge jump and wall grinding mechanics looks insanely fun. The music is still incredible. The interconnected open world is a heck of a shakeup to the formula, and oh yeah, Mario Kart DS's missions are back. I still have my share of burning questions and nitpicks and concerns like everyone else, but on the whole, I have no doubt that Mario Kart World is going to be a system seller and a big hit with parents, kids, and other casual gamers that don't read all the news like we do. Is it worth $80? No. Does it look fun though? Oh yeah, it does, and as a longtime fan of the series, I can't wait to play. Especially alongside my friends and those of you that decide to invest in it. At least it's technically $50 with the system bundle until the fall, right? But you know that bundle's gonna come back for every Black Friday. Things are the reverse compared to the Switch 1's launch, as we already have our multiplayer game in Mario Kart World. However, for a truly meaty single-player experience, you may have to look at the third-party offerings that are pretty cool actually, at least until Donkey Kong Bonanza drops through the ground a month later on July 17th. Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised that the new Donkey Kong game that's been rumored forever now is in fact the first 3D game since DK64. And hey, look at that! They even brought back my favorite voice clip. Oh, banana! Right now, I'd say DK Bonanza is my most anticipated game out of the Switch 2 lineup. I have been waiting for Nintendo to try a 3D Donkey Kong again for ages, especially since I grew up with DK64, and I'm a fan of it, yes, I admit it. Bonanza definitely has that Mario Odyssey DNA, especially when young Pauline was accidentally leaked by Nintendo already, except this time replace the Power Moons with, oh, banana! The twist is that all the environments are destructible and DK will have to punch through the earth itself with his raw strength to find the secrets. Mario climbs mountains, DK moves mountains. That all does make me say, oh yeah, this wouldn't have been possible on Switch 1. And man, I've never seen DK quite this expressive before. Yeah, those are some pretty cool bananas. I can't say that with a straight face, but yeah, I can't wait. Let's see, what else do we have? Kirby Air Riders was a surprising announcement, and it's nice to see Masahiro Sakurai work with his baby rather than Smash Bros all the time for a change. Who doesn't love Kirby after all? And if you don't, you're a monster. Jokes aside, I don't have too much experience with the GameCube original, but I've heard great things about its City Trial multiplayer mode that actually inspired the Smash Run mode on the 3DS. If City Trial makes a comeback of online functionality, heck yeah, that sounds awesome. Apparently that's coming this year, so fingers crossed. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is coming this winter, and similar to Age of Calamity, it's the prequel story to Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Except unlike Age of Calamity that trailed off into a non-canon Avengers Endgame type ending, the devs stated that Age of Imprisonment will be canonical this time. Thank Hylia! My only hope now is it runs at a stable 60 FPS using the Switch 2's power, because man oh man, Age of Calamity's performance was rough on Switch 1, often dipping a low 30 FPS. It's actually the game that started making me wish for a Switch Pro or performance upgrades in general for the next console, so hopefully it gets a Switch 2 edition patch. Then we get our obligatory tech demo games. There's Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour that I'll talk about later when I dive back into the controversies. Meanwhile, Drag X Drive or Dragon Drive is a proper game that is basically wheelchair basketball simulator, utilizing both of the Joy-Cons in mouse mode. If you want to talk about a game that harkens back to the Wii U era, you're looking at it. That said, hands-on impressions for this game have been positive so far. Apparently it is fun, and the haptic feedback, aka HD Rumble 2 on the Joy-Cons makes it feel immersive. But man, I cannot get over that dark and bland look of the game. It's definitely lacking the personality that other Nintendo IPs like ARMS or Splatoon are known for. Are we sure Dragon Drive is finished? Yes it is, because it's dropping sometime this summer. By the way, the tutorials in this game literally tells you to use the mouse mode on your pants. That's funny. That about wraps up the first party exclusives, unless Nintendo's hiding even more surprise announcements for the usual summer direct this year. Chances are good that they are. But wait, there's more to fill out the calendar. First, GameCube is on the way, baby! It's finally coming to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members that pick up a Switch 2 on launch day. GameCube is one of my favorite consoles of all time, so that's exciting to me. The included games will have higher image quality and resolutions, making them look as close to HD remasters as you'll get. Plus, like all NSO games, they will have online functionality. So if you're looking for the best way to play the supported games on official hardware, I guess this is it. I know there's gonna be that one guy in the comments saying, emulation's been doing this for years. And you know what? That is a great option too. Don't pay for the service then. I never got the expansion pack either because I already have access to original hardware, emulation, and FPGA, although this latest edition might finally make me cave. The launch games include Zelda the Wind Waker? Does this kill the chances for the HD version with the quality of life improvements ever coming to Switch? Oh, I hope not. Soul Calibur 2 featuring Ocarina of Time Link is a cool third-party edition, rounded up nicely with frickin' F-Zero GX, now with online races with friends. Oh heck yeah, dude. Even on original GameCube hardware, this game was ahead of its time graphically, and it even has a widescreen display mode, so this ought to look great on Switch too. Super Mario Strikers was also seen in the menu during the Treehouse stream, but I'm not 100% sure if it will be there at launch. Seems like it might not. Games coming in the future are Super Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, that's a hella expensive game these days, Pokemon Colosseum and XD Gale Darkness are hundreds of dollars too. Those are also my favorite Pokemon games, so wow, nice additions there. I did not expect that so soon. I genuinely wonder if they will be compatible with Pokemon Home so the Shadow Pokemon can be transferred. Then we have Chibi Robo in Luigi's Mansion with more to come. Sadly, no signs of Mega Man games here yet, but guys, imagine if we eventually get Mega Man X Command Mission and Network Transmission on this service. Those would be beautiful additions for sure, assuming we never get HD versions directly from Capcom. Please let that happen because more people need to actually play those two games, especially after they both were referenced heavily in Mega Man X Dive. If I had to pick one Nintendo game to add to the list, I hope Star Fox Assault gets added. That game was way ahead of its time, both in its visuals and also its multiplayer. It was almost like a third-person version of Halo in some ways. You could fight on foot, from the skies via the R-Wing, and on the ground with the Landmaster. All the characters had their own unique attributes and abilities, and there were a ton of unlockables too. The only downside was it was local multiplayer only, so finally bringing this online would be a dream come true. I would prefer a proper Star Fox Assault style battle royale game. Heck, let's get Assault 99 up in here, but hey, NSO would be better than nothing. Like I touched on earlier, GameCube games are super expensive nowadays, so from that perspective, this new addition to NSO basically pays for itself. And like I said, I haven't gone for the expansion pack myself, even though Mega Man The Wily Wars is on there, because of my access to original hardware, but now GameCube NSO and the included Switch 2 editions for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are seriously making me consider upgrading. Only caveat is, I did hear from hands-on impressions that there were some frame rate dips in these GameCube games at the demos they played, but Nintendo has been known to update their NSO emulators over time, so hopefully those issues get ironed out before long. What is the most exciting part of this NSO announcement that will appeal to everybody is the NSO GameCube controller that's also dropping on launch day, as long as the scalpers don't get to it. Yeah, it will be a nice fit for the NSO games, but more importantly, if you have one of the blue retro adapters for the original GameCube, theoretically you can connect a new controller to it via Bluetooth. What is the most exciting part of this NSO announcement that will appeal to everybody is the NSO GameCube controller that's also dropping on launch day, as long as the scalpers don't get to it. Yeah, it will be a nice fit for the NSO games, but more importantly, if you have one of the blue retro adapters for the original GameCube, theoretically you can connect a new controller to it via Bluetooth. I don't doubt the controller can be made to work on PC emulators as well. Don't let the disclaimer on the website that it's only for NSO fool you. That disclaimer exists on the page for every NSO controller. Nintendo is just saying the controller may not be 100% compatible with every Switch game and we're not responsible if something doesn't work. On my end, I can confirm that blue retro adapters do work because the NSO Nintendo 64 controller has been my main driver when playing on original hardware. For many years, original hardware enthusiasts have been looking for the perfect replacement to the wireless Wavebird controller for GameCube. And many third parties have taken a crack at providing that over the years, but none of them have been as good as the original controller to me. Finally, we may have a winner with the NSO GameCube controller, especially because it will retain the shape of the wired controller and not be as chunky as the Wavebird was. That and the blue retro adapters have featured low latency, so hopefully input timings will be improved over the Wavebird. So even if I don't end up playing GameCube on NSO, you betcha this controller is going to be a must-have for when I play everywhere else. Alright, earlier I mentioned Switch 2 editions. What the heck is that all about? These are upgrades to existing Switch 1 games that utilize the Switch 2's power to provide performance and resolution enhancements. In the case of select games like Super Mario Party Jamboree and Kirby Forgotten Land, they essentially have DLC expansions that are exclusive to Switch 2. Mario Party has new minigames that use the mouse mode and a Bowser stage show that's for the new camera. Meanwhile, Kirby Forgotten Land is getting Star-Crossed World that appears to shake up all the game's levels with new paths, enemies, and etc. Something I got right on my Switch 2 Direct Bingo card, that I got 2 bingos on by the way, but at what cost, is that some of the Switch 2 editions will be paid via upgrade packs. They are $10 for games that only get the performance upgrade, such as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. However, like I said, the Zelda upgrades are going to be free if you have the NSO plus expansion pack subscription. Then it is $20 for the games that come with DLC. However, there will be some updates to Switch 1 games that are entirely free that Nintendo says may improve performance or add support for features like Game Share. Yeah, I know, it's confusing. We'll go ahead and throw up the free update list on screen. Notably, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are on the list, and oh god, if any Switch 1 game needs a performance uplift, it's them. So thank Arceus if the patch does provide that. I just wish there was more information available on the patch notes for each game. As for what Game Share is, it's similar to the old DS download play feature where you can play multiplayer with other systems with only one cartridge. You can even transmit the game to Switch 1 systems, so yeah, it's a super amazing feature that sadly got glossed over in the Direct. Anyway, I'm excited that we're finally getting performance upgrades for Switch 1 titles. It's something I've been wanting for a while. I've heard that seeing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom running at 1440p 60fps in person is a surreal experience, and yeah, I was blown away to see the footage of the originally laggy Korok Forest actually run smooth as butter now. Plus, the blazing fast load times, the improved textures and draw distance, yeah, that's cool. Maybe I'll feel motivated to go back and actually 100% those games when those upgrades come out. Who knows? At this time, I bet another fellow will enter the comments like, yeah, well, I don't have a Switch, yet I've been playing Switch 1 games at 4K 240fps on my PC for years now. No joke, I once knew a guy exactly like this in real life. And hey, I ain't gonna sit here and condone piracy, but I ain't gonna stop you from continuing to do that either. I wouldn't say it out loud in front of the Nintendo ninjas though. But yeah, if that's you, then clearly this product isn't for you then, and that's fine, you do you. The best option to play video games is the one that makes the most sense for you. And that's why having so many options nowadays is great. Anyway, I haven't even touched on the 2 marquee Switch 1 exclusives coming this year either. Many of us on the ShadowRockZX team are huge fans of our fellow arm cannon user Samus. And we can't wait to finally play Metroid Prime 4 Beyond that we've been waiting practically the entirety of Switch 1's life for. For Metroid fans, this is like our Breath of the Wild moment. I said waiting for Mario Kart 8 was brutal. Breath of the Wild was 10 times worse. Suffice to say, from what we've seen, I think Metroid Prime 4 is living up to the hype. I mean, have you seen Samus's new suit? That color scheme fits my ShadowRock avatar's colors so well. Woo boy. That said, I didn't mention it in the list of exclusives because it's still a native Switch 1 game. You don't need to go out and buy a Switch 2 to play it. Yet, Metroid Prime 4 is getting a Switch 2 edition upgrade as well. It's going to include mouse mode functionality, which hands-on impressions have been saying it might be their preferred way to play the game. And I can actually kinda see it with the way some doors and the first boss encounter requires a ton of precision that the mouse would help a lot with. Furthermore, we have 4K 60fps and 1080p 120fps modes confirmed. Those are reduced to 1080p and 720p resolutions respectively in handheld mode. But yeah, that's right, 120 FPS on a Nintendo console? I never thought I'd see the day. Then there is Pokemon Legends ZA coming presumably this holiday for Switch 1. That is also getting a Switch 2 edition with resolution and frame rate improvements. Will be nice to see a Pokemon game on Switch punch above 30 FPS for once. The final piece to the game lineup is obviously the third-party games, and like I said, there's a really nice list going so far that we'll go ahead and throw up on screen here. This is basically where you're going to find your meaty single-player experiences, especially at launch time. And here we got some previously thought impossible ports like Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, Star Wars Outlaws, and recently Assassin's Creed Shadows got a PEGI rating for Switch 2. So clearly the console is capable of receiving ports from high-end PS5 games. For a while, I've been avoiding buying third-party games on Switch 1 because of the low performance, but Switch 2 is kinda bringing back the magic of bringing a console experience with you on the go, especially if those ports turn out decent. Did I mention Cyberpunk has a cross-save feature? So you can play on your high-end PC at home and then play on Switch 2 when you're on the go. You got some nice indie hits like Hades 2, Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 are coming on launch day. If you're familiar with the Fast Racing Neo and Fast RMX games that are kind of like a F-Zero spiritual successor, then here you go. Fast Fusion is coming at launch as well. Have you guys noticed that we're kind of getting overloaded with racing games on Switch 2 between Mario Kart, F-Zero GX, Fast Fusion, and later on Kirby Air Riders? Like dang, even at launch that's a lot of competition happening. Then this is a 2026 game, but I can't believe that From Software is making an exclusive game for Nintendo of all consoles. It's a multiplayer game known as Dusk Bloods that a lot of us thought was Bloodborne at first. Anyways, good list, and now here's a list of every day one launch title. As far as what I'm eyeing at launch, Mario Kart is a given. Yakuza 0 Director's Cut is supposed to have new cutscenes and English dub for the first time and an exclusive online raid mode. And most importantly, it's a true physical copy. I love the game so much on PS4 that it convinced me to play the rest of the Yakuza series, so I might pick that up. Maybe I'll check out more of Deltarune. Cyberpunk is kind of enticing, but I already have a Steam Deck, so I'll have to wait and see how those ports compare. It is promising though that CD Projekt Red said that they're aiming for a mid-range gaming PC experience on the Switch 2. Oh, and yes, it will use DLSS at launch. Other than that, I can mostly see myself playing the Zelda Switch 2 editions and some GameCube at launch. The rest, I'll have to play by ear because as I'll get into in a moment, I am turned off by a lot of these third parties being game key cards. Regardless, it's not a bad launch lineup at all. A lot of ports of older games in there, but that's how the cookie crumbles with Nintendo hardware. Welp, it's finally time to get back into the negatives as we discuss the bad and why the heck this pre-launch period is so dang confusing. Let's address the elephant in the room first, the pricing. You can hear my reaction to this in the live stream, but during the direct when Nintendo said, "That's all for today," with no mention of pricing, my heart just dropped to my stomach. Because I had recently revisited the Switch 1 presentation, the very first one, and in that presentation, literally from the word go, they told us the launch date and price of the system. So I knew that Nintendo avoiding pricing details here could only mean bad news. My reaction was, oh no, it's gonna be $500, isn't it? Well, I was half right. As stated before, the base console is $450 US and the Mario Kart World bundle is $50 more at $500 US. However, Nintendo has said that they reserve the right to hike up the price of any of this stuff due to the tariff situation, which doesn't inspire confidence about the future. Going with the launch pricing for now, that is certainly $50 more of an aggressive price than I was hoping. I'm sure it will be a sticker shock and outprice some people for sure. However, the cheapest Steam Deck available that's not refurbished is $400, and it's clear at this point that the Switch 2 will be a premium, adult-oriented device that almost makes the original Switch 1 look like a toy. When I consider all of the features and that it is a slightly beefier Steam Deck, at least in docked mode, the price point does seem fair enough to me. No, I don't think it's the cost of the system that's making people spam drop the price in the chat. It's the fact that Nintendo has decided to be the first to release an $80 game with Mario Kart World. DK Bonanza is $70, which is basically the new $60 these days, and Nintendo already tested that price with Tears in the Kingdom, so whatever. We knew that was coming. And if Nintendo had also priced Mario Kart at $70, I don't think anyone would really bat an eye. But $80? That's something we haven't seen since like the Super Nintendo era, back in the wild west of game pricing. In fairness, we were probably going to reach this point eventually because of the cost of game development massively ballooning in size, and the state of the worldwide economy ain't helping matters either. It's just surprising to see Nintendo, who used to be the budget-friendly entry point, get this expensive and take the first step into $80 games before anyone else. Now that it's happened, the rest are soon to follow, especially when the PlayStation 6 comes out and so on. Because hey, Nintendo did it, why can't we do it? And yeah, Rockstar is looking at this right now, rubbing their hands like, ooh, wow, maybe we can get away with charging $100 for GTA 6. Well then, let's see Nintendo try to explain this one away. Let's start with hardware. In an interview with CNBC, Doug Bowser, president of Nintendo of America, said this: "We recognize that there are some people that may not be able to afford the Switch 2's price point. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available so people still have an opportunity to come into our gaming universe, be a part of these characters in these worlds, and see value, if you will, in whatever rung of the platform they come in." Okay. So this quote has been making the rounds, and comparisons have been drawn to the Xbox One days when Don Matrix said, "If you can't connect online, we have a console for that. It's called the Xbox 360 XD." Now, I don't think Doug Bowser's quote here was said with that same malicious intent behind it, because I understand what he's trying to say. We still have a cheaper, similar device with the Switch 1, and it will still be supported for the next couple of years, with new games like Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends ZA, and so on, so there's no pressure to get a Switch 2 right away. I mean, I guess that's how I would have worded it. I don't know, but Doug Bowser's phrasing could have definitely been a lot better. And I can see why a lot of people really do not like this phrasing. In fairness, he is a CEO, and executives in his position cannot simply admit that the price sucks after they already said it. Their job is to sell the product to you. Also, this was conducted in a live face-to-face interview when the pressure is on, so it's one of those difficult questions that requires a lot of thought to answer correctly, where if I were in his shoes and put on the spot like that, I'm not sure I could have done much better. Shoot, I probably would have done worse. Now, it would help if Nintendo cut the price of the Switch 1 to drive home Doug Bowser's point, but I don't see that happening. In regards to Mario Kart World's price, here is an interview with IGN where Nintendo of America's Bill Trinen had this to say. "Well, I would say it's less about the strategy of pricing Mario Kart World. It's more just whenever we look at a given game, we just look at what is the experience and what's the content and what's the value. Mario Kart World, I think, especially as you see from the Nintendo Direct, not to give you any hints or anything, but I did read your article this morning and I think you had mentioned that you didn't find a lot to discover when roaming around. So I would say tune into our Mario Kart World Direct to see what. Maybe you'll be able to find out about that. But honestly, this is a game that is so big and so vast that you will find so many little things in it to discover. And there's still some other secrets remaining that I think as people end up buying and playing the game, they're going to find this to be probably the richest Mario Kart experience they've ever had. Shooting for the moon, are we, Mr. Trennan? But anyway, Bill is basically saying Mario Kart World is so jam-packed with content that it would justify the $80 price. Then he hinted at the possibility of the Mario Kart Direct showing us why it is that way. Whether Bill ends up being right or not once people play the full game, the problem is Nintendo's marketing is dropping the ball big time on giving us a reason to believe the game is worth the asking price. I did give Bill the benefit of a doubt and delayed this very video until after the Mario Kart Direct, but nope. It was mostly geared towards the casuals that do not keep up with the news, because for those in the know, there was barely any new information, let alone anything truly substantial like say a single player adventure mode. In fact, they glossed over the missions, collectibles, and what you can do in the open world, which leads me to believe Nintendo is still holding back some secrets in their typical fashion. I understand the Direct was likely planned weeks ahead of time before any of this controversy started, but when people are yelling at you non-stop to drop the price, you'd think this is the time to bring out your trump cards and not hold anything back, because this has already become a PR crisis situation for them. Now, because the Direct was so lackluster, the message is like, actually we decided to be greedy, but instead of owning that, we're going to make excuses and lie to you. At least that's how it's feeling. I did notice that Bill said there's still more secrets to find when people start playing the game, so there is still a universe where he may be right in the end. But I mean, can't you let us in on some of those secrets so people will be enticed to buy the game in the first place? At least tell us that there's more to free roam than missions and collecting cosmetics. Or give us a better taste of what to expect instead of treating it like an afterthought. Because that's what marketing is supposed to do, sell people on the thing, which is not at all what the Direct accomplished. I don't know, man, I'm still excited for the game, but it does show a lot that this is the first Nintendo console launch we've had without the influence of the old guard, such as Reggie Fils-Aimé and the late Satoru Iwata. This is clearly a different Nintendo than how they left it, as we'll see with the next concern, which is about Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Every Nintendo system's gotta have a tech demo, and this is it. Much of the game consists of slideshows that give you a deep dive into the system specs and the development behind it, but there are also some neat little mini games in there to provide an interactive experience, such as the mouse mode game that gives Mario Paint vibes, and I like the one that shows how the entirety of level 1-1 in Super Mario Bros. Can fit within a 4K screen. What's the problem with Welcome Tour then? It's paid. It's not a pack-in like you think it would be. Once again, they did not tell us how much it costs during the Direct, but later Bill Trennan confirmed it's $10. Yikes. That is a hard sell because even the PlayStation 5 had Astro's Playroom as a free pack-in, and that was an amazing game that had a lot more exciting gameplay than what Welcome Tour seems to have. Basically, this is because Nintendo Japan does not believe in giving away their work for free. It's an age-old issue that has gone as far back as the Wii days when Reggie went to bat against Shigeru Miyamoto and the rest of Nintendo Japan to get Wii Sports as a free pack-in over in the West, in order to easily show people what made the Wii special. And as we know now, that Wii Sports pack-in helped to make the Wii a massive success. What's hilarious is after Nintendo announced that the Switch 2 Welcome Tour is paid, Reggie went on social media to share an interview where he talked about his Wii Sports story, basically throwing shade on Nintendo for not learning from their past. Man, all this makes me miss the guy more, because it's clear that the people in Nintendo of America right now aren't doing their job of raising their hand and being like, are we sure this is a good idea? Which leads to an echo chamber effect and these bad decisions. You know, if Nintendo spent less time harping on that game chat feature and more time on being upfront about all the important details and why they make sense, the situation may not have been as bad. And also, they just straight up said, Mario Kart is $80, deal with it, you're gonna buy it anyways. instead of what they actually did, saying, hey, watch the Mario Kart Direct to find out why it's $80, and allowing people to have their expectations reach the moon about it, just to be disappointed. Yeah, no, Nintendo going full mask off actually would have been better in this situation. The final topic regarding pricing we need to talk about is the paid Switch 2 editions. I said before it's $10 for the upgrade and $20 if it has DLC, but I didn't mention that they're doing physical releases for the Switch 2 editions as well. So you're going to see $70 and $80 once again, but for Switch 1 games this time. It is crazy, but here's what's going on with that. Nintendo is practically the only gaming company that puts an emphasis on respecting the value of their games, to the point that you rarely ever see them do discounts on first-party titles unless it's Black Friday or something special like that. Every other time, Nintendo games stay at their full original value. That means, even though Breath of the Wild is 8 years old now, it's still going to be sold as a $60 game. Combine that with the $10 upgrade, and that's why the Switch 2 edition is $70. Same for Tears of the Kingdom, it was $70, so now it's $80 after the upgrade. Kirby Forgotten Land and the Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 editions are $80 because they have the DLC included on top of the $60 original price. I don't necessarily agree with charging that much for last gen games, but that's the explanation for it. The good news is you only need to pay that much if you don't already own the game. For existing owners, it's only that $10 or $20 upgrade price. Meanwhile, the 2 Zelda upgrades are free if you have the NSO plus expansion pack. The more spicy controversy surrounding the Switch 2 edition's physical releases was the confusion over whether the upgrade pack was on the cartridge itself or was it a download code. Thankfully, after much misinformation going around, a Nintendo spokesperson finally came forward to confirm that yes, the Switch 2 upgrade is included on the cartridge. Phew, thank goodness. That's good news for physical collectors. The best way I've seen anyone describe how these cartridges work was through the FAQ that Marvel has posted about Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, and what they say is really interesting. The Nintendo Switch 2 edition is a red 64GB game card that includes, in full, the Nintendo Switch game and the upgrade pack. There's no need to download the full game. Simply insert the card into either a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch 2 console, and the correct version will launch automatically. Like most modern titles, there may be small updates or patches available at launch to provide minor fixes and improvements, but rest assured, the complete game is on the game card, ready to play from day one. That second paragraph appears to confirm that Switch 2 edition games are a lot like the smart delivery feature that the Xbox consoles have, where you can insert the game into either console and the device will automatically load up the correct version. We've also seen that native Switch 2 game cartridges will have a notch embedded into the design, seemingly to keep you from putting it into a Switch 1. But I guess cross-gen Switch 2 editions won't have that notch, so you can have both versions in one. Neat! Okay, before we get into our last ugly topic, here's a few more rapid-fire worries I had. What's up with the vague 2025 launch window for Metroid Prime 4? I was hoping that they kept that vague during the surprise Switch 1 Direct because they might reveal it to be a Switch 2 launch title. I mean, the footage makes it look like a finished product, and Metroid would have been a perfect first-party single-player game to dig into at launch. Because yeah, as I said, the new single-player offerings from Nintendo are slim until DK Bonanza. But I guess it wasn't meant to be. Possibly they're going to save Metroid for the fall or holiday, since Nintendo likes to release one big game a month to keep people coming back. If a summer direct does happen and we don't hear a release date there, I'm going to be seriously worried about this game. In the meantime, hey Nintendo, that means you still have time to re-release Metroid Prime 2 and 3 on the Switch. Please? You at least have GameCube NSO to put out Prime 2 on. I did my whole spiel about game key cards earlier, how they acted as download keys that you can still lend or sell, but let's throw up that list of confirmed key cards so far to show you how many of them there are. Some of them make me scratch my head, like Bravely Default? That was a 3DS game. possibly because of that rumored 64GB cartridge or nothing policy. And that's such a bummer that makes me not want to buy many third-party games, at least on Switch 2. I'm glad the banner on the front of the box is easily identifiable because I can see this being a constant and exhausting game of researching if a game you're interested in is a key card before buying. Again, if Capcom is making Street Fighter one of their top 3 franchises a key card, I am seriously worried that Mega Man is going to end up in the same boat. We have seen glimpses at the Switch 2 home screen, and yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same as the last time. RIP themes and personality once again, but I mean, as long as it's functional and Nintendo ain't lying when they said that they made the eShop app not run slow as molasses this time, I'll live. I want to touch on the Switch 2's battery life. Nintendo estimates it to last 2 to 6.5 hours. Obviously depending on the game. That's quite a bit worse than the revised Switch models that last 4.5 to 9 hours, and it sucks they didn't achieve that with Switch 2. That said, the battery life is comparable to the original Switch model that went 2.5 to 6.5 hours. Also, let's do a more fair comparison to the Steam Deck that can range from 2 to 8 hours. Frankly, I'm lucky to get even 2 hours out of my original Steam Deck model when I'm running a graphically intensive game. So the Switch 2 battery ain't great, but it's not anything I haven't put up with before either. Alright, we have now arrived at the number one reason you should hold on to your Switch 1 for now. Backwards compatibility, or rather, the issues with it. So Modern Vintage Gamer did a good video on how backwards compatibility on Switch 2 was achieved, and it's a complicated mix of emulation but also hardware too. There's a lot going on there. In layman's terms, the Switch 2 hardware is different enough that games aren't going to work one-to-one to how the Switch 1 does. Even Nintendo has stated that you may see performance improvements out of the box for Switch 1 games just because of the higher power ceiling. So here's the compatibility chart as of April 15th. Apparently the next update is planned for May. On the left, Nintendo first party games are at basically 100% compatibility. The only exceptions being gimmick games like the Labo games or Ring Fit. The games will still work, but the system and Joy-Cons don't fit into those accessories. That's understandable. The problem starts when you see the third party compatibility. About 22% of the games appear to be just fine, but then you have this giant 70% or so that boot up but still needs testing. What I want to focus on though are the games with startup issues and those that have in-game issues, which Nintendo has provided a list for. So far there's only 2 games that Nintendo is planning to address, first being Fortnite, which is getting a Switch 2 version on launch day. I heard Fortnite runs like garbage on the Switch 1, so an upgraded port with 4K and 120 FPS modes is nice for them. Mouse mode ought to go hard on that too. Then there's Fitness Boxing by Nintendo that's getting patched. Then you look through the list of games with issues and you realize it's not just a few small titles that nobody cares about. These are some big name publishers that are getting hit. Not only AAA games and indies, but some of the retro collections too. I'll let you read the lists for yourselves, but yeah, I was shocked to read some of these names. As for games that this channel covers, under startup issues we have Gal Guardian's Demon Purge from Inti Creates, a game I reviewed previously. Then under in-game compatibility issues, there it is, Mega Man Legacy Collection 1. For both of these, Nintendo just says this issue is being investigated. As for why it's only Legacy Collection 1 and not any of the other collections, my running theory right now is that there is a compatibility issue with the emulator that Digital Eclipse used. Backing up my theory is the fact that Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, another one that Digital Eclipse worked on, is on the list too. So since Digital Eclipse only worked on Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and not the other Mega Man collections, it makes sense why that's the only one on the list. Although I can't help but wonder if issues with other games will be discovered as Nintendo continues the testing process, or when we get the Switch 2 in our hands. Well, since I'm planning to try pre-ordering the system anyway, I may as well make it my mission to test all the Mega Man games on Switch 2 and report back to you guys what I find. Maybe I'll even live stream it. For now though, I highly recommend that you guys do not sell your Switch just yet. I know those GameStop trade-in deals may seem pretty enticing right now, but don't do it. Especially if there's a game on the compatibility list that you care about. I was hoping I could essentially replace my Switch 1 in my setup as well, but guess I'll have to keep that dock plugged in for a while longer. Bummer. Well, I think we covered it all. It is truly unfortunate that we are in this situation where we are being pulled in two directions. The hardware and games are hype as all get out, but then the debacle surrounding the marketing, pricing, and other details leave a sour taste. But you know what? All these controversies have happened, but you and I both know that the Switch 2 is still going to sell out in the blink of an eye on the 24th, because it's still a Nintendo console, and they still hold the keys to some of the most beloved IPs in gaming. That means die-hard fans of their exclusives are still gonna throw their money at the Switch 2 no matter what. I think the true test will come once the stock steadies out. Then we'll see how the parents, kids, and those that are not terminally online react to everything. The main thing I could see going wrong when it comes to that is not just sticker shock, but if it took people like us a few weeks to figure out all the launch details, that does not bode well for Granny walking into the electronics store trying to make heads or tails of it all. Some people say this is going to be another Wii U. I say this situation harkens back to Sony launching the PS3 after the success of the PS2 with their boneheaded, greedy decisions. Granted, this still isn't $599 bad, but the $80 game debacle does bring that to mind. Guess we'll have to see how this all shakes out in the coming year. US pre-orders for Switch 2 should go live on April 24th, barring any more tariff shenanigans. Walmart, Target, and Best Buy are going live with their pre-orders right at midnight Eastern Time. You'll have to do your own time zone math there to figure out when it comes out in your region, because midnight Eastern Time means 9 PM for the Pacific. GameStop is doing in-store pre-orders when they open and also online at 11 AM Eastern. So that is a solid backup plan if the first three retailers fall through for you. Also, Best Buy and GameStop are doing midnight releases on June 5th, so that's exciting. Meanwhile, Walmart has said that they will deliver pre-orders at 9 AM or sooner on launch day. As for Amazon, them and Nintendo have had some beef with each other for a while now, so Amazon hasn't received any consoles or first-party games lately over here in the US. Don't count on them to do US pre-orders. Shame, because Amazon was how I got a Switch 1 and PlayStation 5. My only other advice is follow people like Wario64 for lightning fast updates and links when the pre-orders do go live. And lastly, if you find yourself having to camp at GameStop, make sure you arrive an hour or two before opening, just in case there's a long line. Well, that's all folks. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned to ShadowRockZX for more on Mega Man, including how they end up playing on the Switch 2. Thank you to all of our channel supporters for helping to keep the channel afloat, especially because the Switch 2 is going to be some expensive content. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to debate with myself if having a physical copy of Mario Kart World is worth 30 extra bucks. Rock on, have a wonderful time zone, and best of luck if you're going to be fighting Maverick Scalper bots on the 24th as well.